I was given a lovely invitation a few weeks ago to return to the other palace to check out the new cast of Millennials. Now, I'm not the type of person to kind of stretch out a video if I don't really have much to say on the matter. As my thoughts on the show remain pretty much the same as my original review, I didn't really see a need to do another review just kind of focused on the new Millennials cast. By the way, they're all really great. Everyone's really well cast, just as strong as the originals. But I did want to talk about something else about Millennials, and that's the discussion of what's next. Now, we don't often get to say this a lot with London theatre. We don't really have much of a pipeline, so to speak, of an off West End to a West End. The most we tend to see is like regional productions that will sometimes come to the West End, but most of the time these are revivals, shows that have already kind of prove their weight in gold and are a lot of an easier sell. It's very rare you see a Six or a Jamie. So today I'm sitting down here to talk to you about Millennials' next steps. What could the show do next? What's its immediate future? And what would benefit the show as it continues to workshop itself? But you haven't seen my face before. Hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I do reviews, I do discussions, and if that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out, helps out what I'm doing here, and also, why wouldn't you want to see more of me? I am amazing. Don't fact check that. Let's go on with the video. So, after a short extension to its run, the show is scheduled to close on the 7th of September. So far, it's been running in the Other Palace's studio space, which they have completely transformed for this production. And honestly, it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun. Just walking around the space, it's a lot of fun. Even on the second time being there, I was like... I think this space was extremely good for the show. And that leads me to possible future number 1. A return to this space. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This space is the one thing that everyone comes out of Millennials raving about. And with a little bit of time out the theatre, we could see some further changes and additions to the material. Additional songs and stories, which the show really feels like it's yelling out for. The Other Palace seems, at the moment, really reluctant to let go of their shows. I mean, Millennials got an extension, Heathers is there indefinitely, so I can see this happening in the future. Now, while I'd love for them to wait on a full cast album, I must admit it would really help at this point to get at least a few of the songs properly recorded. I know we have a few demos, but songs like 21st Century Girl and Four Little Words have great potential for apps like TikTok, which has already proved successful for shows like Beetlejuice and furthering the popularity of Heathers. If we look at where we are at the moment, we are about to face, and we're actually starting to face, a cost of living crisis, especially in the UK. And people aren't that willing to give up their spare cash at the moment because they don't really have much. So to get people to travel to your show, to check out and take a risk on it, they're more certain to do this if they know a little bit more about the show. If they like some of the music or they like this, that, and the other. The internet is great for this, and I think Millennials is exactly the type of show that could follow this type of trajectory. However, eventually, I'd love to see Millennials fly the nest. I think this show could definitely move on to a slightly bigger stage. Where would I suggest? Well, I think it is tough because you kind of have to think about timing as well. Like, a lot of these theatres have bookings in and things that we don't know going in, but let's say it could go anywhere. The timing is perfect. Every single theatre is open for Millennials. Let's just say that. Well, first things first, the Arts is an obvious choice. Not too big. It's a theatre that's taken in many shows like Millennials onto its stage. I mean, Six. They could do what Fantastically Great Women Who Changed the World did and do a UK tour first. Build a name for yourself across the UK. Even the Charing Cross could work for it. They often put their shows on in Traverse. I could see them, the kind of avocado in the centre, having this become more of a Traverse style show. But I think no matter where they go, some element of the kind of playground that it originally had in the studio should stay. I don't think it needs to be exactly the same though. If it went to the arts or on tour, they could easily do on-stage seating. Bring the blankets, the bumper cart, the ball pit onto the stage. And turn a theatre that's usually proscenium into the round or traverse. Almost imagining that the studio is the stage. So you still keep that element of that, but you also add in the kind of more traditional proscenium arch staging that is kind of more associated with bigger theatres. That way you kind of expand the show while still keeping that level of intimacy. But that's my main point. I think this show needs to expand. Expand the material by adding more songs and giving this cast more opportunities to show themselves off. Expand the space and take the ideals that they've had with this original production and take them into a more traditional way of staging theatre. Expand the reach of the music. Get those demos and the cast album recorded and give it time. It took Heathers a few years to gather its fan base. It took Be More Chill even longer. This is a type of show that could gather that fan base, but it doesn't happen instantly. Will we see a West End run of Millennials? I don't know. It has a lot to do before it can get there, and London is still trying to find the best way to build this pipeline between off-West End and West End. Especially what we're facing at the moment with the crisis, it seems like the West End is struggling to take risks on things like Millennials. Even though we are seeing things like My Son's a Queer, But What Can You Do make it to these stages, it seems like they're still only getting really short runs. I think Millennials has the potential to get there. Eventually. There's a lot of work to do with the show. There's a lot of fine-tuning of those songs. Additional material is needed. But when a show has potential, it has potential. And I think Millennials kind of taps a market that is still not really overly saturated in the West End at the moment. I would love to see this show improve and continue to workshop and finally, when it's time, get that space on a West End stage. But what do you think? Are you a fan of Millennials? Would you like to see it go further? What are your ideas for how Millennials could stage itself in the future? I'd love to hear all of your ideas in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribing. It really helps me out and helps out the channel. There's some links on the screen to some other videos that I've made in the past, but that's it for me today, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye!